Welcome to the Shamrock channel, and welcome to subscribe. Ethan and my stepsister were kidnapped, and I volunteered to take her place as a hostage. I was injured and became disabled trying to save Ethan. He wept bitterly at my bedside and promised to marry me. However, on the day we were to be married, my stepsister chose to take her own life. In her suicide note, she mentioned that she had experienced the greatest betrayal and decided to take all her secrets with her. While sorting through her belongings, I found a pregnancy test. After much searching, I was unable to find the father of my child. In the 3rd year of our marriage after I became pregnant, Ethan gave me a bowl of pills to drink. I was in agony and questioned him about the reason. He smiled coldly and said that if I hadn't forced him to marry me, Lily would not have committed suicide. He continued, saying that this was my retribution, and that he wanted me to pay for the woman and child he loved. He watched me in agony, and watched me bleed to death. When I opened my eyes again, I was back to the moment they were kidnapped that day. This time I turned around and ran, not wanting to save them anymore. Now the story officially begins. Elaine, can you hear me? How can you be distracted at a time like this? Ethan Snow was furious, and the image of the aloof and indifferent man from the past had long since disappeared. Usually I don't mind when you act like an idiot in front of me, but this is no time for you to be selfish. Seeing the man in front of me, I couldn't help but cover my stomach, the pain in my heart once again surging, and I crouched down in pain. I searched for the shard on the ground with trembling hands, but couldn't find it. Ethan's roar brought me back to reality, and I instantly realized the situation in front of me. Ethan and my stepsister were firmly held by 2 burly men. Lily Lane looked at me with a pale face and tears in her eyes, full of grievances. I'm sorry, sister, for putting you in a difficult situation. I subconsciously took a few steps back. I'm sorry, I didn't catch what you just said. Ethan lowered his head and stopped talking. I felt him closing in on me again, his gaze fixed on me. He said, you trade places with Lily, their target is me, I promise you'll be safe. I took 2 steps back. If I really could be safe, then it didn't matter who was tied up. I wish you a happy and long life. After that, I turned around and ran, as if there was something terrible behind me. In my previous life I heard someone screaming for help and without hesitation rushed to save them, only to find out that they were targeting Ethan. I volunteered to switch places with Lily. On the way, Ethan jumped off the car and escaped. To protect him, I got in front of him, and my left arm was pierced by a steel bar, leaving me disabled. After that, he proposed to me in front of the hospital bed, saying that he was willing to accompany me for the rest of my life. Our story became a beautiful story. After Oliver Snow was arrested, we got married. On the day of our wedding, my stepsister committed suicide. In her suicide note, she mentioned the biggest betrayal of her life, and decided to take all the secrets with her when she left. While sorting through her belongings, I found a pregnancy test, but after a long investigation, I was unable to find the father of the child. Because I felt guilty towards her, I have never celebrated our wedding anniversary. After learning that I was pregnant, Ethan said that the dead should be remembered, and the living should move on. On the 3rd anniversary, he brought me a bouquet of hibiscus flowers and personally cooked me a bowl of medicine. When I was in excruciating pain, he finally told me the truth. Lily's child is mine. If you hadn't interfered and proposed a hostage exchange, the love that was rumored outside would have been me and her, and we could have been the happiest family of 3. He played a recording. This is the secret she wanted to take away. In order to marry me, you colluded with my uncle and devised a scheme of self-inflicted injury, so that I had no choice but to marry you. Mia, you have really gone too far. He glared at me, pinching my face and clenching his teeth. You wanted to send Lily abroad while she was still alive. Since you despise her so much, don't bother going to her funeral. Just stay here and keep watch over her body. It took 3 years of marriage to see his true face, and I only regret that I couldn't see it at the beginning. He looked coldly at the bloodstains on the floor and whispered in my ear, I will have many children, but definitely not with you. I was filled with anger. This time I won't fall for it again. As soon as we returned to the banquet hall, the lights suddenly turned warm, and then an inappropriate video was played on the big screen, starring the 2 people who had been kidnapped earlier. Just as the Snow family leader was about to turn off the video, the screen suddenly switched to Ethan and his stepsister hanging from a building that had been left unfinished, more than 10 meters above the ground. The masked man demanded that we prepare 1 billion yuan, and representatives from both families must come at the same time to ransom them, not one less. He warned us that if we called the police, there would be serious consequences. Many members of the Snow family had gathered in the reception hall, discussing the matter. In the end, they reached a consensus. They refused to pay. Someone shouted in the midst of the chaos, "This concerns both public and private matters. We should not use company funds. At this particular time, any scandal will directly affect the stock price. I don't think we should seek support from any public officials." Mia's mother was hugging her daughter and crying non-stop, severely criticizing the members of the Snow family for their indifference. She turned her head and looked expectantly in our direction, but the situation was even more dire. "We don't have any money. The Snow family's mortgage payments can't even come close to 100 million. I kindly offered my stepmother a glass of water, but she slapped me. I told you to bring my sister back, and this is how you handled it. If you had moved faster, she wouldn't have been implicated." I lowered my head and didn't say anything. In the corner of my eye, I saw Ethan's mother looking over, so I spoke in time. "Auntie, I'm sorry. My sister told me she was going to the garden for a stroll, but I couldn't find her there. I don't know how she and that man could have both disappeared at the same time." Hearing this, Ethan's mother's resentment suddenly came to the surface, and she sneered, "She just didn't want you to follow, so she deliberately made up a lie to get rid of you." She looked up at me and her tone was a little dissatisfied. "My son has always been obedient, and if someone hadn't lied to lure him away, he would never have left me. This could be a bad outcome. If that's really the case, Mr. Lane, your education is really worrying." She thought this way, and it was understandable. Previously, there were rumors that I was courting Ethan, and now there was news of Lily. Anyone would think that this was a conspiracy by the Lane family. My stepmother was very angry, and my father kept telling her to go over and apologize. He knew that even in the Snow family's internal struggles, he was not someone he could provoke. The stepmother tried to ingratiate herself with the other side in a low-key manner, but the other side ignored her. I know Mia's mother must be very angry, especially when it comes to her son, and she will be very critical. The Snow family quickly raised 500 million, but we have made no progress. The Snow family said they were only willing to pay half, and my father did not want to use all his assets to ransom a daughter, so despite the stepmother's entreaties, he did not respond. The situation reached a stalemate for a while, and it was only after the Snow family proposed to investigate my father's company that he reluctantly came up with the money. My Snow family sent a negotiation expert to go with me. Before we left, my stepmother reminded me to definitely save Lily back, even if I had to trade places with her. Unexpectedly, the masked man was not satisfied with our preparations. He told us to choose one of the two and demanded that the answer be the same. If he really cared about these two people, he should have prepared 1 billion each. "Now you have 3 minutes to think about it. Who do you choose?" All of a sudden, there was a lot of noise coming from the headphones. Mia's stepmother, who had put up half the money, was very confident and yelled into the headphones, "Mia, Lily is your real sister. You must choose her. Otherwise you will never be able to enter the Lane family." Mia's mother said that she could pay an extra 500 million and promised to choose her son, give me 100 million afterwards, and help me sever ties with the Lane family. Hearing these words, I was speechless for a moment. In a critical moment, my stepmother hurriedly said that she was willing to go to my mother's grave to apologize and return the jewelry that my mother left me. Time is up, but everyone's opinions are not the same. The atmosphere became very tense. The masked man took out a knife and slashed the rope binding the two of them, and Lily screamed for help, scared. Just at the critical moment, the silent Ethan suddenly shouted, "Don't hurt Lily. If there's any way, just come at me." The masked man laughed. "I didn't think you weakling would be so sentimental." Lily's eyes filled with tears as she looked at Ethan with deep affection. "Ethan, I'm so happy to hear you say that. I love you, and in times like these we're in the same boat." She couldn't hold back her tears as she said, "Sis, choose Ethan." I felt helpless. Could it be that I was harmed by this person in my past life? I was really stupid. Ethan was moved by her heartfelt confession. Lily already had an innocent temperament, and now she was pale, which made people feel even more distressed. Faced with this beauty with tender eyes, his protective instinct immediately rose. He said to the masked man, "Hello, uncles. You kidnapped me only for power. It's not too late for you to turn back. Let Lily and me go. I promise to take only what belongs to my family. I won't touch the rest." The masked man paused for a moment, then laughed. "Ethan is really smart. Your uncle said that he is a little worried about you being so smart." The masked man didn't want to hear from Ethan. He put the knife to Lily's neck, turned his head and asked us, "Who do you choose?" The expert and I looked at each other. Lily spoke with trembling lips, "Sister, just choose Ethan. I know you like him too. I won't be jealous if you two get together. And I will pray for your happiness from heaven." Big teardrops fell, breaking people's hearts. She looked at Ethan deeply and said casually, "So my life is so short after all. Ethan, goodbye." I glanced at Ethan and saw that he was touched by Lily's words, especially when she finished speaking, closed her eyes and prepared to meet her end. He couldn't help shouting at me, "Mia, save her. You've already given up once. Do you want to let her go again?" He shouted at us, "I order you to choose Lily." I looked at the expert and threw the money box out, taking 5 steps back. We said in unison, "Choose Ethan and let the person go." The two people hanging there were stunned and didn't expect us to choose this way. I clearly saw Ethan's expression relax, and when he turned to look at Lily, he looked a little sad. Masked Man laughed aloud, nodding his head. "Silly nephew, you're really silly. Guess why they didn't listen to you?" He took 2 steps forward and gave a standard 90-degree bow. The game of reverse psychology was over, and the 2 guests had successfully passed. Just as Masked Man held a knife to Lily's neck, our headphones went silent, and then we heard a voice say that this was a game of reverse psychology, and the rules must be respected, or else there would be consequences. I saw panic in Ethan's face as he tried to find support in the air with his legs. It turned out that he was just bluffing. Our eyes met, and I could feel the anger in his eyes, as if he was questioning why I didn't choose him. I gave him a fist salute and thanked Ethan for his deep friendship with my sister. "May your love last forever." Ethan slightly moved his lips, as if he wanted to say something, but once the words were spoken, they could not be undone. The masked man didn't say much either, and with a wave of his hand, the rope binding Ethan snapped. Ethan was so scared that he turned pale and fell straight down, while Lily called out his name in pain. As soon as he hit the ground, Ethan bounced back up, stood for a few seconds, and then fell forward again, blood oozing out. I couldn't help turning away. If this continued, he might lose his face. After the signal was restored, heart-wrenching cries came from the headset, so I quickly took it off and threw it aside. Outside, there was a whistle, and Masked Brothers' backup arrived. The men under the masked man waved a steel bar in front of us, but in the end they realized that we didn't want to fight at all, so they ran away with the money box. The masked man snorted in disdain and said that he had picked 2 ruthless guys, which really cheated us. Later, I heard about Ethan's situation. He was declared critically ill in the hospital, and after several rescue attempts, they were unable to save his leg. The floor of the abandoned building was full of uneven cement blocks, and his nose was broken and his face was injured. Hearing this news, I tried hard to control myself, and could only tightly pinch my thighs to keep from laughing out loud. In my previous life, I volunteered to replace Lily, first because I really liked him, and second because I had studied martial arts and felt that we could work together to get away from the 2 kidnappers. I never expected him to jump out of the car on his own, causing me to get hurt, and in the end he actually said that I was setting him up. Since he wanted to stage a love story with Lily, I will grant him his wish. I hope he can accept this ending. This rescue incident made all 3 families unhappy, except for me. My father felt bad that he only saved 1 daughter during the famine, and he blamed me for not having a holistic view. I chose not to argue and just listen quietly. My stepmother has been very busy lately. Since the kidnapping, I have sent a video of her on her knees to everyone in the family, and she no longer dares to look at her phone. Because of my father's complaints, they argue every day and are often pursued by gossip reporters. There are major changes happening in the Snow family. Oliver has been recognized as the new person in power, while Ethan has been completely excluded. As Ethan is in constant danger, rumors began to spread that he is unable to save himself. I heard that Mia's father is surrounded by beautiful women, and Mia's mother seems to have lost all her authority at once. She sits on the porch every day like a stone waiting for her child to return. At this time, the expert young man came to me to testify. He came to the Snow family to ask for the other half of the money. He said, "Madam, I am a professional, and I will strictly follow the employer's requirements." That day, the signal was interrupted outside the stadium, so I could only listen to Ethan's opinion. He strongly urged me to choose Mississippi Lane, and this lady beside me can testify. I began to doubt his professionalism. Who doesn't know the emotional story between Ethan and Mississippi Lane? It is precisely because of this that Mia's mother has a prejudice against people with the surname Lane, and he even came to me for testimony. Sure enough, he didn't get the money, and Ethan's sister even beat him up with a mop. I watched the expert leave, and just as I took out my phone, my hand stopped. Two faces appeared on the screen, one of me and the other of the expert. He had appeared behind me again without me noticing. He looked lost, his eyes fixed on the screen, not at me. He said softly, "I came to ask you for money. I'm very professional." I wanted to scream, but his words made me laugh. He said that I had performed poorly during the hostage rescue and that he had evidence. I pointed out that he had performed even more unprofessionally, but he smugly said that the evidence could be altered. I laughed without saying anything. No wonder he said that villains die from talking too much. In his shocked expression, I proudly raised the voice recorder in my hand. The basic principle of recording, his predecessor tried me long ago, you came too late. The experience of a previous life was like a spliced recording, allowing Ethan to deny all my hard work. In this life, I decided to study hard. It doesn't matter if it's true or not. What's important is that someone will always trust me. The rumors from the outside world and the praise from the circle are all the result of my hard work. After listening to this, he lowered his noble head, not understanding why my feelings for the two of them had suddenly changed. I couldn't tell him that I was reborn to take revenge, so I could only say that I found that everyone was acting, and I didn't want to be involved anymore. My father has encountered a lot of trouble recently. First, the debt collectors came early, and then there were a lot of order problems at the company. After investigation, it was found that the Snow family was behind it all. My stepsister is emotionally unstable and only visited Ethan a few times, even though they were in the same hospital. Mia's mother saw this and felt that she had no conscience, thinking that her son had been cheated. She believes that even if she is a little sharp, she is only venting as a helpless mother. Lily, as the beneficiary, should be by my side every day, silently supporting me, instead of secretly complaining to the press. Unable to directly take revenge on Lily, she turned her attention to our company. The day Ethan was transferred to the general ward, my father brought the whole family to visit. Lily screamed in terror when she saw Ethan, wrapped up like a mummy. Although she knew he had lost his leg, seeing it for herself was still too much for her to handle. Ethan's younger sister was furious and rushed over to bite Lily's arm. Although Lily looked quiet on the outside, she was actually a spoiled brat. These days, the rumors going around in Mia's mother's mean words and actions have made her feel very painful. She had a conflict with Claire Snow, and this conflict worked, waking up the unconscious Ethan. When he woke up, he learned that he had lost a leg, and his emotions got out of control, and he frantically smashed the objects around him. He refused to be examined by the doctor, and didn't want to see anyone. All suffering can only be truly felt by experiencing it firsthand, and he must be responsible for his own choices. I suddenly wanted to encourage Lily to confess her love. If she was willing to stay by his side for the rest of his life, would he be moved? I was so naive before, thinking that this was unwavering love. My wish came true quickly. After he woke up, Ethan became irritable, and no one could stay in the room for more than half an hour. He had to hire a caregiver to take care of him, and he changed caregivers 3 times in 3 days, and one of them was injured by him. Mia's mother brought a pile of information to the old man, and sent Lily to Ethan's hospital room that night. Meanwhile, my stepmother knocked on my bedroom door. The next day, I appeared in Ethan's hospital room in high heels and a miniskirt. Ethan couldn't take his eyes off my legs, so I pretended not to notice and turned around proudly. Lily looked nervous and hurriedly moved a stool so I could sit down. Ethan, my sister has always been very concerned about you. She kept asking about you while you were in the intensive care unit. Ethan snorted, turned his face away from me. Lily gently took his hand and whispered his name. Ethan turned around a little uncomfortably, just smiling at Lily. Lily, don't let anyone else in the future. It's enough to have you. Lily's smile almost got out of control, and she looked at me expectantly. I asked in bewilderment, do you want me to praise you? I wish you two would be together forever, and be a couple even after you die. Ethan seemed to have been touched a sore spot, and immediately flew into a rage, smashing the glass on the table and shouting at me, get out, you're not welcome here. I'll tell you, even if I die, I won't like you. You still want to marry me? Let's see if you're worthy. I only treat you as an ordinary friend. I'm nice to you when I like you, and ignore you when I don't. You won't leave anyway, I've tried many times. If you really like me, I can barely keep you around for company. I stood up in shock, my tears almost falling. I accidentally fell onto him, my elbow hitting his stomach, and when I got up my hand touched his stump. Ethan's face was contorted with pain, his forehead covered in sweat, his hands clenched into fists. He wanted to curl up but couldn't, gasping with anger, his eyes rolling. I patted his face hard. I'm sorry, what you said really hurt me. I can't accept it right now. I didn't mean to hurt you, are you okay? Lily responded quickly. Sis, I know you have a lot to say to Ethan. I'll leave you two some space. Ethan, you and your sister talk it out, work out your misunderstandings. I'm going to get you some medicine. Ethan looked at Lily leave with tender eyes, then turned to me with hatred in his eyes. I crossed my legs and said indifferently, she's found a new boyfriend, the Miller family. I heard that the old lady in that family really likes her, and clearly wants her to be her daughter-in-law. Impossible. He firmly denied it, and when he saw that I didn't say anything for a long time, he began to feel a little anxious. Mia, is that all you can do? Spreading rumors, framing people, and threatening them. What other tricks have you not used? What do you really have to do to let her go? I still didn't respond. Lily said that you insisted on marrying me because she wanted to repay Dad's debt. I couldn't help but laugh. She can marry a good family, but I have to marry someone who has suffered a great loss. Unless I'm really stupid. Ethan seemed to have realized this too. On the surface he was calm, but the anger inside him was already hard to control. I decided to add fuel to the fire. I took a voice recorder out of my bag. Mom, I don't want to marry a disabled person. It's better for me to die than to take care of a disabled person for the rest of my life. What's the difference between him being like this and plotting for his own interests? I feel like I can find someone better, but I'm stuck with him. I really regret being with him. Now he has nothing. Why not just end his suffering, even if it means turning him into a vegetable? Ethan was so angry that he fumbled around on the table, but there was nothing there. I played with the voice recorder in my hand. There were a lot of secrets hidden in it, so I couldn't let it fall and break. I sighed. Lily was really lucky. She said she didn't want to get married, but someone came right away. Ethan, if you don't make an effort, she won't be your leading lady anymore. I turned around helplessly and left, and Ethan's painful cries came from behind me. From that day on, Ethan asked Lily to stay by his side, and she didn't dare to refuse. Ethan not only paid off my father's debt, but also said online that it was a betrothal gift for Lily, making her feel secure. Ethan and Mia's relationship caused a heated discussion online. Lily has been by Ethan's side ever since, unable to leave. My stepmother took me to meet her daughter a few times, but Ethan's bodyguards always turned her away. Ethan flew to the US for surgery, and Lily lingered outside my house for half an hour. I invited her in. Sister, marry Ethan. I gave her a random slap. She was really naughty to think such a thing. Lily gritted her teeth and endured, then knelt down before me. Sister, you liked him so much before, continue to like him now. I will never compete with you again. It's not easy to find someone you like. Are you willing to let someone else pick the fruit you have picked? These days, through online learning, I have come to understand Lily's intentions. Before, I only thought she was a kind person, but now I realize that she was actually seeking to benefit herself. In her previous life, she always told me to go after Ethan and not to appear too strong. So I appeared indecisive in front of him, deliberately accommodating, and occasionally feigning ignorance. Before Ethan died, he praised her highly, as if he were using me as a comparison. She is really ruthless. I asked her, what if it doesn't turn out well? No one will admit that their choice was wrong. I pinched her face to make her stop talking and looked down at her. Lily, you think I don't know? Although he was injured and his appearance had changed, his disability had nothing to do with you. You just want to avoid being blamed and want to pass the buck to me because I used to like him very much. On the surface, you supported me in pursuing him, but behind his back, you were intimately close to him. If there had been no kidnapping, how long were you going to make me suffer? You would have embarrassed me on important occasions, and then told me afterwards that you never expected him to like you. Lily stammered and tried to explain, so I poured a glass of water over her. As she left, she angrily accused me, Mia, are you without fault? You discovered that we had been kidnapped but didn't go looking for us. You did one of two things, and you thought the Snow family wouldn't resent you? I just laughed. So what? What's wrong with protecting my own safety? At most, I just seem heartless. Thanks to you, my heartlessness has long since become a label. If Ethan is the one lying in the hospital going crazy, do you think he'll agree to marry you if you beg him? Lily looked at me in disbelief, mumbling to herself, how could this happen? That night, my stepmother threatened me with her inheritance again. The first time was tolerable, but multiple times was too much. I let go of her arm, and she dashed towards her daughter's room and swept away all of Lily's valuables. It's enough to cherish the memories in your heart, and just one memento is enough. My mother was not a wealthy person, and the memento is just something I can't bear to part with. It will not become my weakness. However, your daughter's things can make my bank card even fuller. If you threaten me again in the future, I will take away your daughter's things. The mother and daughter made me regret my previous foolishness. After I returned, Ethan no longer insisted on keeping Lily by his side. I was surprised to hear that he had hired a professional to help with training. After all, someone who could support an entire family in a previous life could not have been depressed all the time. With no one around to disturb me, I enjoyed the peace and quiet. I ran a small business outside and spent my free time with friends. Happy times passed quickly. The nanny called to say that there was a problem at home, something serious. My stepmother had been publicly humiliated at the Miller family banquet, and my father had returned home angry and injured. The two of them had exchanged a few words before they started fighting. I don't see the connection between these two events. The mother and daughter had been humiliated more than once, so the old man shouldn't have been angry about it. The house was turned into a crime scene, and I heard it all from downstairs. It turned out that the old lady of the Millers had set her sights on me, and the party was to meet me. When the stepmother and Lily appeared, the Millers immediately understood the situation, and the old lady had them thrown out of the party. Old Mrs. Miller angrily went to the old man's company, accusing him of breaking his promise and selling inferior goods. In the end, she ended the cooperation and even hit him with her cane. The old man then realized that he had also been deceived. He had been told that Lily was the one the Miller family wanted, so he decided to give up on the Snow family. Seeing that Ethan was holding a grudge, the stepmother proposed that I marry Ethan instead of Lily, and he agreed. In his view, useless people have to serve useful people, and Lily, who was surrounded by negative news, was considered very useful by the Miller family. It didn't matter about my happiness as long as I could continue to use his value. He and the Miller family used their second daughter to form a marriage alliance, but they didn't realize that the person they had been looking for all along was me. My father said his career was ruined, while my stepmother said she was willing to lie 100 times for Lily. Suddenly, there was a loud noise from inside, and my stepmother flew out of the room, hanging over a step. She then turned around and rolled down the stairs. I looked at the person convulsing on the ground and felt a sense of satisfaction. Karma finally caught up with her. When she got pregnant, she forced my mother to divorce her. My mother didn't want to argue with her, so she hid in her room and avoided her. Who knew she would fall down the stairs herself and give birth to a premature baby? After she woke up, her first words were that she felt my mother had let her fall on purpose. To prove that she didn't care, my mother chose an extreme way. But in the end no one cared about this matter. She returned home with the baby but fell again. This time she could no longer blame anyone. The doctor at the hospital said that she had fallen quite seriously, and that some of the previous medical beauty procedures needed to be removed. The old man angrily slammed the door and went out. At that moment, the nurse came in and reported that there had been a major traffic accident, and summoned all the doctors to the emergency room. After seeing Lily's condition, she told us that it was the head of the Snow family who had been involved in the accident. The truck had been speeding and ran a red light, and Oliver's car was unable to avoid the collision. The truck driver was killed instantly, and Oliver had lost consciousness in the car. I heard that the truck driver had terminal cancer, and was trying to earn some extra money before he died. But he never expected something like this to happen. I felt a chill, as it seemed like too many coincidences were happening. I decided to find out more, and when I saw Ethan I hurriedly followed him. Ethan was looking at the operating room from afar, his face calm, his gaze fixed on the people crying. He quietly observed for 10 minutes before leaving, and I hid in the shadows, afraid that he would see me. I was shocked by his change, his cold aura radiating from every pore. The veins on his hand, which was resting on the wheelchair, were exposed, a clear sign that he was angry. Ethan, who had only experienced a few life and death situations, could understand this state of mind, so he returned. He knew who his enemy was and had already taken his revenge. The next target must be me. I hired a private investigator to investigate the Miller family to find out what secrets they had, and why they were paying attention to me. I vaguely remembered that the Miller family was not very reliable, and often appeared in the tabloid news. In their previous lives they liked someone but then they ended up with someone else. I didn't expect to meet the old friend expert again, but he reassured me that he was professional. I handed him the information, and he only glanced at it before taking a stack of documents from the safe and handing them to me. It was my investigation report, detailing everything about my previous life. It even went into precise detail about every day since I was reborn, how much money I had made and how I had made it. I knew that the abilities of a private investigator couldn't possibly reach this level. A gold-framed business card was stuck in the middle, which read, "Feel free to disturb at any time." After leaving the club, I went straight home. Lily was very happy to see me, and said that a lot had happened recently, and she wanted to apologize to me. I silently surveyed her and saw her evasive eyes, and I sneered inwardly. After going back to my room to get some things, I followed her out. "Sorry, I'm unable to help you with this content." I didn't hold a grudge against her in my previous life, but this time I realized that my stepmother's methods of tormenting me were all designed by her, and she always hoped that I would fall into the dust. It didn't take long before Lily fell asleep. Her phone rang, and it wasn't Ethan's voice on the other end. I whispered to them to come over in 10 minutes. I quickly changed clothes with Lily, let my hair down to cover my face, and then quickly hid in the pantry. The people who came in had no suspicions at all. After seeing the note on the table, they took the person away directly. They took Lily to an unfinished building, and I vaguely understood Ethan's intentions. The men put Lily in a sack and carried her to Ethan, who beat her mercilessly with a club. The bug in Lily's body was damaged, but I still had binoculars to observe. The people the Miller family borrowed were really efficient, and I sent out a location to quickly find a good place to observe. After venting his anger, Ethan drove everyone away, and I told the people around me to leave as well. If he starts rambling about how he's been reborn and knows I've been reborn too, I'm sure I'll be in big trouble with these money-hungry people. Mia, I never thought I'd be reborn too, what a pity. I came too late and gave you the chance to do this to me. I sighed inwardly, now that's better. I'm back and I'll have a chance to take back what's mine. You'll pay for this. He felt that it was still not enough, so he swung the stick again and hit it hard, and some blood seeped from the sack. He untied the sack and saw a human face peeking out. It was Lily. Ethan froze for a moment, then burst out laughing. Lily was awakened by the water and, realizing where she was, crawled to Ethan. She explained the reason in a trembling voice, begging Ethan to give her another chance. I find it laughable that she is already dead, and Ethan's love for her is so fervent. While she was alive, He carried the memory of a previous life and was unable to possess her. That kind of deep love made him unable to forgive her for her mistakes in this life. Lily tried to muddle through with a pitiful gesture, her eyes sparkling with tears, waiting for Ethan's forgiveness. Ethan, I was wrong, really wrong. You are my only way out, and I am willing to serve you with all my heart for the rest of my life. We have had so many good memories together. Can you give me a chance to make amends? Ethan from the previous life might still be able to awaken some conscience, but now he only has a lonely soul. Ethan looked at her legs with a little envy, and when he turned his head, all he could see was resentment in his eyes. He grabbed Lily's chin and said seriously, Lily, for you I lost my wife and son. All the good things in my life were destroyed because I wanted to avenge you. How have you treated me? You said I was useless and hoped I would disappear and then go to please the Miller family. Lily shook her head desperately to deny it, and continued to beg for mercy in a pitiful voice. Ethan covered her mouth and smiled as he shook his head. I also understand that beautiful things are often fragile, as are people. Since Mia is not coming, you will be the sacrifice. After saying that, he pushed Mia off. He actually killed her like that. I received an unfamiliar message on my phone saying that she was dead, and we owed each other nothing. But he didn't die, so how can it be said that we owe each other nothing? That day, I saw his cold expression in the hospital, and suddenly understood a lot of things. In the past, he always gave his enemies a way out, but those people didn't appreciate it and eventually turned around and attacked him. I protected him from the smoke and the alcohol, and I even protected him from the knife. As a result, I pushed him away in the accident. I was seriously injured, and I had to face Mia's mother's accusations, sarcastically saying that I couldn't bear children. Every time this happened, he would kneel down in front of me to admit his fault, and he even cried in front of my hospital bed. It wasn't until now that I realized that this was all part of his plot. He used me to lure out the bad guys, and he deliberately let me get hurt to take revenge on Lily. I packed up all the evidence I had gathered against Ethan and sent it to Masked Man. Ethan didn't know who this person was. In a previous life he was very loyal to Oliver, and he planned several assassinations and car accidents. In the end, I found someone to catch him. At that time, I thought Ethan would soften his heart, so I took the initiative to deal with him. I didn't expect this to become the trump card in my counterattack. Masked Brother is indeed a loyal person. After sending him the information, he immediately arranged for someone to kidnap Ethan. When Ethan was found, his prosthetic leg was smashed, and there was a bloody shovel at the scene. His information was found among the ashes. As evidence came to light, the state intervened directly in the fight for power, demanding the payment of all assets. I met with old Mrs. Miller at a cafe, and I thanked her for protecting me behind the scenes. I asked if she was willing to let me become your granddaughter even though she knows my shortcomings. She bluntly said that you had also investigated our family's situation. The expert showed me the Miller family's information and found that the Miller family had few descendants and that everyone was unremarkable. Old Mrs. Miller wanted to change this situation, but the family members just played around, which she was very disappointed in. She liked me because I was decisive and brave. She sees me as someone who seizes every opportunity to make a fortune, and has a unique perspective. I feel a little guilty about this, and old Mrs. Miller taps her walking stick on the ground. You must trust others. I hope you can contribute to the family, and bring a new atmosphere into our home. Children are fine as long as they are from the Miller family. When the time comes and you get tired of them, you can always get rid of them. I give her a thumbs up. The old lady really has an open mind. I have become the most powerful granddaughter-in-law in the Miller family, and I have also fulfilled my wish to have children.